Hi, everybody. Today we're going to be speaking with Mike Coscina. He is an expert when it comes to SDR. He's going to speak about how it is to outsource your SDR team. And if you're going to have an inside SDR team, he's going to share if it should be under marketing or sales. He's also going to talk about what makes a good SDR to account executive ratio and what mistakes a new sales manager will make at the beginning. We have a really great episode, and I hope you learn a lot. Thanks.
Startup Sales is a podcast about what it's really like to get a business off the ground. We talk with founders, CEOs, and sales VPs from the high-tech market. You'll learn how to build and scale a sales team. You'll also hear about the growth challenges and tough decisions from others who have had both successes and failures. And now, your host of the Startup Sales Podcast, Adam Springer.
Michael, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Adam.
Great. Why don't we start with giving me a quick overview of Demand Drive?
Yeah, sure. So, I've been with Demand Drive for 5 years. We've been in business for about 7, and currently we help B2B enterprise software companies, usually around Series B funded and up, scale and grow their SDR teams.
When you say help grow and scale the SDR teams, what do you mean?
So as far as, helping them even with, obviously training the SDR on their product, generating revenue and close business for our clients. And from there, as the programs progress, we see a lot of our clients adding reps because their revenue goals are growing year over year, right, as they grow. So to hit those revenue goals, they need to add additional SDRs, or maybe they started with an outbound program and that's doing great. They want to add with one rep, and now they want to add a second outbound rep and split the US, or have an outbound and an inbound team. So there's all sorts of different facets to the programs on how we help them scale. It really comes down to like aligning objectives with our clients, sales development, leadership, and Demand Drive. But overall, we become a real true extension of their team. That's really what separates Demand Drive, is like you feel like a part of your client sales team.
Okay, great. So an outsourced SDR team on demand.
Exactly.
Wow, terrific. So you have a lot of experience in there, and so why don't we start digging into that? Let's go with the ongoing debate. SDR, does it report to marketing or sales? What have you found to be the best?
So I mean, that's a question that can definitely spark a lot of debate. When there's like a higher volume of lead gen, right, and you need to go through like a lot of leads or do outbound. There's 2 different ways of looking at it. I think it's, we've seen it be more effective to report up to sales but then there's a lot of leads that need to be followed up on. But then again, when you're taking more of an account-based strategy, you should really be tighter aligned to marketing, because they'll be doing, account-based marketing, targeted paid digital ads to, major accounts, maybe top 50, top 100. And you really want those SDRs focused on prospecting into those accounts and knowing and being really synced up with marketing. So really whatever the end goal is of the program, whether it's to follow up on inbound leads, and it should report into marketing. But if they're looking at like strategic, outbound and things like that, and target accounts from like a cold perspective. Sales is usually a better spot to roll up under.
Okay, and why is that for both of them?
Well, so with the marketing, obviously, so like touching on that, like being aligned to like what marketing objectives are, like who are the accounts, what messaging is very important when it comes to rolling up under marketing, and for sales, say they want to add like. We had a client recently. They want to add, 20 new logos by the end of the year. And that one, we're rolling up under their VP of sales, and it's very, clear cut. We know what our objective is there. That's how he's being measured, and we're there to support him and execute on their behalf in the highest quality fashion for them.
Okay. So tell me, what kind of company should start looking into building an SDR team? Or I should ask, what stage should the company be in?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And like over the years, we started working with younger companies, right? Like Series A and startup type companies. That can be a little tricky, just in the sense that first they need to establish product market fit, and that's usually like they got an angel round or a Series A. So if we start working with them before product market fit is established, then it may not be a successful program. Whereas we noticed, working with Series B and up, the VC firms are coming in, providing an injection of capital in the Series B round to scale sales and marketing. So that those first rounds of funding are for building the product and engineering and all that stuff. Well, once they have a really good product, they've researched the market. Now it's time to really grow this company that they've created, and that's where we come in.
Okay, so basically, once you've found the product market fit, and have gotten past that stage, then you should start building out an SDR team.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, what kind of ratio do you have between SDR and AE, account executive?
So it varies across all of our clients. It really depends on, I guess, a few things here. So like, one, account executive salary is much higher than your average SDR's salary. So having more, we used to see, a company with 6 account executives with 3 SDRs. And what account executives are focused on doing, right, is closing business. So they're going to default to closing deals. Prospecting is kind of an afterthought to them, or they don't really want to do it. Just in general, there's obviously exceptions to that. But yeah, they have to hit their quota. So having an engine, like for example, Demand Drive or any sales development team, working to just tee up highly qualified meetings for their account execs to then put into their pipeline, and then they work their pipeline deals and generate. Just strictly focus on closing. Sales development strictly focuses on generating that pipeline for the sales reps.
Okay, but you gave a number of 3 SDRs to 6 account executives that you've seen before. Is that a good ratio, or what would a good ratio be?
Yeah, so it really depends on on a number of factors on what the company wants to achieve. But a good ratio would be like the opposite, right? So like if they have 6 AEs and 3 SDRs, make it 6 SDRs and have 3 AEs and have 2 SDRs support each AE. that way they're getting more bang for their buck, and the AEs can focus on what they're good at doing. Their strengths lie in closing deals, and that's really what's going to ultimately drive top line revenue for the company.
Okay, so two SDRs for one account executive.
Yeah,
roughly.
I would say that's, and sometimes it's even a 1-to-1 ratio, right? Like it comes down to a company's budget for the sales or marketing team, but there is, you want to kind of work backwards. So say your revenue target is $1 million in closed business for 2018. Work backwards with your conversion rates. How many meetings do I need to set up in order to hit that number with the what's going to convert into an op, what's going to convert into closed business, and then you work backwards to get the proper number of SDRs and account executives respectively.
And is it the same rule applies as far as 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 for outbound versus inbound?
That's actually a really great question. I think inbound, you can do obviously like much more. You can be much more effective with inbound. You have a clear lead view or a contact view in Salesforce or in Salesloft with all the automation tools out there, and you can really fly through and qualify inbound leads in or out. That being said, when what we have preached since day one here is, if you get an inbound, say it's like a director of marketing at XYZ company that came in as a MQL, you may call that person because they're on your list, but we still look at it from an account-based approach, usually across all of our projects, and have our reps bring in another 2 or 3 people, like the VP of marketing, the CMO, maybe go lower and try and get some intelligence there. So you're getting it. You're starting out from an inbound point, but then that's jumping into doing outbound. So there's really there's no magic bullet. I'm a very strong believer in you need both. Like a company can't just rely on their blog to produce enough MQLs or anything like that to be successful in the long run. Ultimately, you're going to need outbound at some point.
Yeah. All right. And how is outbound different for the SDR team than inbound?
Outside of when you're reaching out for inbound, you're following up on, say, like a webinar covering sales effectiveness that maybe a sales consulting firm put on, and you would reach out as an SDR and say, hey, John, I'm reaching out here from XYZ company. I wanted to make myself available to you as a resource. I know you had attended this webinar. Wanted to get your thoughts on it. So it's a little bit more conversational in the sense, like, you're being consultative, opening up to the prospect and seeing really, what piqued their interest in the webinar. Was it educational? Was it, is there a bigger initiative going on? And is this the person to speak to? Sometimes, or many times, they're, delegated to either evaluate solutions or, download content to then report back to a senior executive. So you're working this inbound lead, but really you need to leverage that conversation and to get intelligence into what's going on there. So that's the inbound side. The outbound is much more strategic. You can't just, send out like 20 or like 150, 200 emails a day through email automation tool, because marketing can do that at a much bigger scale and with much less cost. They don't have to pay for an SDR to do that. So with outbound, most effective programs do research on, okay, what are my key verticals or industries that we've seen the most success in. So like we had a client that had a very well-known research firm come in, and this is a company that's been around for over 10 years, so they have historical data. And they looked at all of their closed business or deals or closed lost, and found that there were, their core verticals were, like finance, computer software, and healthcare. So with Outbound, that program focused on mainly those verticals. Sure, we could go outside, but you have to be laser focused on those verticals, and then really understand the ICP of the client. So like their ideal customer. So like what's the right title? We covered the industry. So now it's just a matter of leveraging LinkedIn, and we're a big proponent of Sales Navigator here. So leveraging LinkedIn and doing the right research with Boolean search, and pulling in maybe target accounts that the sales reps provide. Like give me your 5 or 10, dream accounts that you want to get into, and we'll work on, bringing in the proper execute prospects into your CRM, and then executing really personalized outreach, because you're not going to always get those hits like, hey, yeah, I'm reaching out from XYZ company. Here's the value we provide. Do you want to set up a call? They may say, or do you have a project or initiative? They may say, yeah, that sounds interesting, but right now isn't a good time. Reach out to me in 6 months. So now he's in your pipeline. At about 3 months, I'd recommend like reaching out, or really whenever, reaching out and sending them like a relevant piece of content that you found that they may find valuable. So that way you're staying top of mind with them, and you're providing additional value to that individual, and it just kind of keeps the relationship going from the outbound perspective. So with outbound, it's much lower activity. So like call volume, because we call it account mapping, bringing it. Sometimes we just start with straight accounts. There's no people. So we'll get 20 accounts. We know the industries and the titles, and we just build it out from there with some tools internally. And then you're following up with, obviously emails and calls. Our call plan is very similar as far as number of touches, which is 8 to 12 over 2 to 3 weeks, a combination of call and email. But with the research that's involved in strategic outbound, you're looking at, like almost half the number of dials to an inbound project that's set up on SalesLoft or Outreach or one of those platforms, and they are able to do, hundreds of calls in a day. So it's much different, but we've seen tremendous success when it comes to outbound, when it's executed properly, and everything's aligned in the right way.
Interesting. Okay. What kind of metrics should a company have that are important before building out an SDR?
So before building out an SDR team, understanding what your close ratio is, so you can work backwards and figure out how many you need. What other ones would be really important? Let's see here. Obviously, the close ratio, and then metrics looking at their pipeline and how many touches it takes to reach a prospect, or what percentage of their pipeline is flipping. Like industry average is like, at least for sales development, is like 50 to 60% of your pipeline will flip into a sales qualified lead. So understanding that, just so they have a sense of like where when they bring on an SDR, are they improving, or how are they doing? And they can benchmark kind of where they're at.
Okay. You said the industry average for an SDR to take the lead into a qualified, sales qualified, is 50 to 60%. Is that for outbound or for inbound?
For both. So once, yeah. So and kind of staying on metrics here, like for an SDR team, we've been following the Serious Decisions waterfall method, which is really well known, which is ISQL to SQL to SAL. Some companies flip the SQL and SAL. I don't know why. It's just it varies from company to company. But ISQL is inside sales qualified lead. SQL, sales qualified lead, and then sales accepted lead. So then you measure the conversions between each. But from that ISQL stage to SQL stage, you should be seeing a 50 to 60% success rate in your pipeline flipping over. So say like if somebody said follow up with me in May, or if you had 4 people say that, you should see 2 to, if you have 3, then you're at a 75% conversion on your pipeline, which is awesome.
And what do you count a sales accepted lead as? Like, how does a salesperson say, I accept this?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And I think there's like a stigma even in outsourced sales development in general that, oh, these guys are just setting up very loosely qualified meetings. And that's one thing that we don't do, and even like an internal team doesn't do. These are the client sets the qualification standard. So like, do they need to have X number of developers? Do they need to have Kubernetes? All sorts of different stuff. So like our SDRs are reaching out and gathering this information, and then once it's ready, like the time is right, there's a project or initiative within 6 months where they're gonna do an evaluation and possibly purchase, then we set up the meeting. But it's not just like, hey, this is Mike Coscina calling here, and I'm reaching out from XYZ company. Do you want to take a call with my director next week? That would not be a great meeting for your sales rep.
Yeah, definitely not. All right, so let's say I'm a small company and I'm wanting to build my SDR team. Where do I start?
So most people in that situation, the first decision to make is, okay, do I want to build this internally or do I want to outsource it? Those are the 2 options you have. That's it.
Okay, let's say I want to build it internally.
Sure. So building it internally, you need to hire, usually an SDR manager kind of comes later. So like you're going to hire an SDR. Maybe he's like a player coach for the other SDRs that will soon to follow. But then if they're reporting to the VP of sales or like the VP of marketing, those folks are very busy and they have lots on their plate. So sales development really works best when there's a dedicated manager, because they need that coaching. I mean, SDRs are typically more junior in their career path, so being able, they need somebody to be there, like in the trenches with them, rolling up their sleeves, really focused on on their call numbers. Are they hitting their goals? And having the manager set mini weekly goals along the way. Like, hey, send me 2 really good calls that you had for me to pull the recordings, or even bad calls, so that we can sit down and do a review next week or whatever. Things like that provide a ton of value to the SDR and provide really great moments of coaching.
Okay. So when you're hiring a SDR, what kind of traits are you looking for?
So the main traits that we look for hiring an SDR is first, past success in anything. So like, it doesn't have to be sales development, just somebody who's been successful in the past. Coachability is huge. Like I said, like, if you can't, it's okay if they don't have sales development experience. You can train somebody very quickly in how to be a good SDR if they're coachable. If they, if you provide some insights into how to improve their message and they make the tweaks, then you'll have a great SDR there and continue, and they'll continue to get better. Attitude is a big thing. Staying positive. If you're being negative all the time, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, oh, nobody picks up the phone, I'm not going to make any calls. It's not the best thing. And then lastly, curiosity and being inquisitive. So one of the major contributing factors in my growth, and just under 5 years, I came out of college and jumped right into sales development and then into leadership, was being extremely curious. So like, anything I come across, make sure you look it up. Being really like always, tuning into different podcasts or reading like a piece of content. My favorites are Sales Hacker is one that's really, doing a great job. Max and Gaetano running that team over there, and they put out weekly webinars on really great topics. Not everyone resonates with myself, but they're resonating with other people, and they are really on like the cutting edge of sales development and have the most progressive tips and tricks, and they bring on great thought leaders. So that one, I strongly urge anyone listening in here to, if they're not already following Sales Hacker, get in tune with them and just try to block off. It's you're basically educating yourself. No one's really going to do it for you. So that's really helped me just learn an immense amount of knowledge on sales leadership, and sales development.
Okay. How else have you managed that change to go from that individual contributor to management?
So that was probably one of the biggest challenges I faced in my career thus far, was being a high-performing rep and not really having to worry about much else other than like, okay, I need to set this many meetings this month, I need to watch my pipeline, versus how do you motivate and get things done through your people, which is a big thing that Mike Weinberg talks about in Sales Management Simplified. Which, like, that, reading that book, if you're making a transition into sales management, that's like a must read for anyone. It really helped me get a grasp of like what needs to be done, how to make the transition successfully, and what challenges along the way. So you're kind of learning from other people's mistakes. But with myself, things I did, I mean, obviously, having a mentor here at Demand Drive, Lindsay Fry, our president, is, we've been meeting weekly for years now, and she's been building SDR teams for like 20 years. So just asking, again, being curious, asking questions, trying to push the boundaries on each week on how we can improve our program. And also asking, hey, what could I have done better? I say I gave a workshop to the company in the morning, and say, always asking for feedback, so that way you can just improve a little bit each day, and eventually you'll be much more confident in yourself and your ability to manage. but some of the big challenges are, whenever you're jumping into an early management role, there's definitely things that come up, like you make early management mistakes, like you want to kind of control everything still, when really you should just you want to obviously have a pulse on what's going on and making sure everything's running smoothly. But you also want to not micromanage your reps at all, and make sure that like they have you as a resource, and that they're leveraging you and whoever in the company can help them. But overall, it's good to have them, as long as they're a strong SDR, like just let them get their work done and hold them accountable to the results. If they're supposed to make 50 dials a day, and at the end of the week they only made 150, then you need to have a difficult conversation with them. That's one of the things in management that you don't have to do as an individual contributor, right? Like, you don't have to really sit down with anyone and have difficult conversations. And a big part of that is communicating. So like doing it in a way that you're doing it with candor, and you're communicating your message, like to not demotivate them and be like, hey, you did an awful job this week. There may have been other things going on. We all have personal things that happen and come up. As long as it's like a continued trend that you see week over week, then that's totally fine. It just happens. So as long as they hit their number the following week and get back on track, then and provide consistency, that's a big thing there.
I had another question, kind of going back in time when we were talking about how to hire, what kind of traits when hiring somebody. You mentioned a really good training program is important.
Yep.
Can we talk about that?
Oh yeah, totally.
So how do you train SDR? What kind of program are you putting together?
Yeah, so definitely, like say you hire an SDR with zero sales development experience right out of college, or just just jumping into sales development from whatever stage they're at in their life. Providing a very solid week of sales development training, best practices around sales development, and also you have to train them on their product, or if it's an internal team, on the solution, and who their target market is, who their competitors are. So we've messed around with the lengths of time that this onboarding program should take place. And what we found at first, we built it out where we had, we had very intensive 2 weeks of training. And then it goes into more like weekly workshops, like as they're hitting their phones and sending emails. And that occurred over a 3-month period. That ended up we still carry that on, but we've really condensed it, and just so that way it's getting, you're ramping up the SDR faster. That's the goal of like any SDR manager out there, is how fast can I ramp up my new reps that I have to, as I'm scaling my team, to produce consistent results. So really condensing it into like 30 days of intense training and workshops, so they have all the knowledge to be successful. And then a really important aspect to any training program is have some sort of certification test. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, like you're certified, but just like some sort of test where they have to go through and actually like answer questions or provide them scenarios. So like if they're going to be on the outbound, say like, okay, use your client's, first a question would be like, what's your client's ideal customer profile? Based off that, pick 5 target accounts that you think would be a good fit for your ICP. Then dive into LinkedIn Sales Navigator and find me 2 to 3 prospects each account that would be a great fit to reach out to, and then what would be your relevant message, or taking it a step further is hyper relevancy, and providing them what would be your message over the phone, or what would be your email and subject line on your first outreach attempt.
Okay, so just being able to prove that they're ready for the job.
Exactly. Yeah, and giving it, and really giving me, the way I look at it is from a management perspective is obviously getting things done through your people, but also giving them all the tools they need to succeed. So whether that's some sort of making sure that all their data is a big thing. It's not the SDR's job to ensure that the quality of the data is good. That falls on leadership and management to make sure that the partners they're working with are supplying the right data, and it's not like the SDR is not wasting their time calling into phone numbers that are completely wrong.
Yeah, we all know that problem. All right. Well, Michael, is there a way for people to reach out to and contact you?
Oh, yeah, of course. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn, Mike Coscina, Coscina. I'm always sharing, not only demand drive content, which we put out quite often, but I really like to share and just provide value to my connections on best practices in sales development. So if you're looking for a way to find, some really good insights in sales development, definitely add me on LinkedIn, drop me a note there. My email is michael.coscina@demanddrive.com, and you can also follow me on Twitter at Mike Coscina.
Great. Mike, thank you very much for being with us and sharing your insights.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adam. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Startup Sales with Adam Springer. Subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. To contact Adam about consulting services or speaking engagements, visit startupsalespodcast.com or email startupsalespodcast@gmail.com.
Mike, let's close things off with with 5 last questions. What is your favorite sales or leadership book?
So that goes back to Sales Management Simplified. Just out of the fact that it helped me so much in the hardest period of my career thus far, which was that transition. It really helped me a lot. So that Sales Management Simplified that.
Excellent. Do you, besides sales hackers, is there someone that you follow or read for sales and leadership advice?
Yeah. So, there's OpenView Venture Partners. They recently put out a 2018 SaaS benchmark report. That was really insightful. You have to do some digging to find it through their website. They're a VC firm based in Boston. Also, Jack Kosakowski, he's doing some great things around video and prospecting and marketing. Coca Sexton. There's a whole slew of folks on LinkedIn that provide tons of insights. This is free stuff, and everyone on there, if you build your network in the right way, you can really get some great. You can learn a lot just by being active on LinkedIn, and having a LinkedIn profile is great, but having a LinkedIn presence is really what sets apart, some good reps to the really great reps that build their own personal brand as well as represent their organization.
Yeah. All right. Are you available 24/7, or do you have strict personal time boundaries? Why is it every time I ask this, people laugh?
That's funny. It's just with technology these days, it seems like you always have to be available. Myself, in the summertime, and really throughout the year, we work with a lot of West Coast clients, so they're 3 hours behind us. I'm available over email. I don't mind sending sort of off at night during the week, but on the weekends, I don't do any sort of like work per se, like prospecting or anything like that. I read on the weekend and listen in on podcasts and that sort of stuff for my own personal knowledge and continuous learning and development. That's just something I have a passion for. But then there's also times where I need I start to get you just start to feel stressed out, and it's like, okay, I need to take some time off. Maybe I would go up north to like Vermont or New Hampshire, and there's usually no cell service up there, so you've got an excuse how to not be disconnect and go snowboard, get in nature, and then you come back feeling much well rested, and you end up really achieving more than if you had stayed there and been in the weeds for the last 2 days.
Absolutely. All right. And what is your favorite tool used for sales?
So my favorite tool is a combination, and that includes, just because I've done a ton of outbound, I'm a huge proponent of doing outbound and helping our clients execute on outbound. Is a tool that I started using in their very early days. I was one of their probably first users on Lead IQ. That helps you build lists from LinkedIn with a really good accuracy rate. And in a click of a button, that you could add 25 people at once, but if you have to suppress them against current customers or ops, you can do it one at a time. But you can build a list of 60 to 100 people in an hour, and that's at a targeted fashion. And then that you can either export into SalesLoft, or in my case, we use a lot of Yesware instances here. So we've had great success with Yesware because it works with both Outlook and Gmail. So you build your list through Lead IQ. It's very targeted. You can segment it by title, by industry, what have you. And then through Yesware, you've got your automated email templates. It's syncing to Salesforce. So we've kind of automated that whole process there. That's been my go-to for the past 2-3 years.
Great. So Lead IQ and Salesforce.
Yesware.
Yesware, sorry.
Yeah.
Lead IQ and Yesware.
Yeah.
Good. What is one piece of advice you have for all the founders and the VP sales listening to this conversation?
Definitely, with SDRs, they are, I guess this is actually a really great question, and I've posted some things on this in the past month or two, is having the VP of sales or even the CEO be an SDR for a day or two. These guys and girls are on the front lines. They are talking to your prospective customers. They understand the market. Sure, the VPs of sales get it at a high level, but they're not having those individual conversations and really understanding either how easy or how difficult is it to generate these opportunities for the reps to close. So my one piece of advice would be, for any VP of sales, sit with your SDRs for a day and be an SDR for a day. I think that would be a great exercise.
So hit the phones.
Yeah, totally.
Go old school and hit the phones. Great, Mike. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and definitely a lot to take in. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Adam.